Blessings and manners to one another. Welcome to another episode of Voice of Our Generation, where we discuss any and everything affecting Bahamians and or the Bahamas. If you haven't subscribed as yet, this is the perfect opportunity to do so. Go ahead and get acquainted with the big red button to your right. In the last episode, we spoke about murder and how it is having a negative impact on our male population specifically. In today's episode, we look at the reactive measures taken by the majority of parents, measures taken by the immediate community, and by the government as it relates to at-risk youth. I would like to start with a quote from Janett Lansbury. She said, and I quote, "In my world, there are no bad kids, just impressionable, conflicted young people wrestling with emotions and impulses, trying to communicate their feelings and needs the only way they know how." The line that stood out the most to me was impressionable, conflicted young people, because that is a very vulnerable state. To be impressionable means to be easily influenced, and this is where parents come in. Who are you allowing to influence your child or children? Majority of parents in the urban areas of Nassau, the Bahamas, have minimum knowledge of their kids' social life. I'm referring to kids between 8 and 15, because before 8, the world should have limited interactions with your kid alone, and by 16, in most cases, the seed has already been planted. When parents see sign of rebellion in a child, they typically start off with normal Bahamian discipline, which is an old-fashioned whooping. But as the child gets older and their behavior worsens, the parents are limited in options. The urban community only likes two kinds of bad people: the ones that have a lot of money and shares it with some, or the Joneser, for lack of a better word. The one they can send to the shop and get to clean their car or yard for a little. Sad to say, but in these communities, we are not our brother's keepers. Your position in your community is solely based on where your chips fall or your desire to build. And that brings us to the government. At the time of the release of this recording, we currently have 3 active government measures in place to deter juvenile delinquency, mainly in boys. Those are the adolescent ward at SRC, where for discipline, kids are injected with some sort of fluid that has painful side effects, including the tongue becoming swollen and basically sticking out of your head, your eyes rolling over, and it includes some sort of paranoia. And to add insult to injury, you were placed in a very cold, isolated room in nothing but your undergarment. Disclaimer: this information came from persons that were at this institution between 2007 and 2013. We are yet to confirm if the conditions have changed. But in all our research, we found this to be the best on the list simply because it is cleaner and your kids would have round-the-clock access to nurses and doctors alike. But that doesn't negate the fact that they are drugging kids. Number 2 is the Simpson Penn Center for Boys. In 2011, the Progressive Liberal Party's then Shadow Minister of Social Services made a visit to the institution and said she was, and I quote, appalled at the conditions the place was kept. And cottages that were supposed to hold 12 persons each were holding 20 each, almost 2 times its expected capacity. And she notes that it is a breeding ground for hostility. The active Minister of Social Services in 2011, Loretta Butler Turner, then rebutted by saying, basically, if the PLP had done their job 5 years prior, then the FNM would not be faced with what it is faced with. And then says, they changed leadership of the boys' school recently, and also added that the damages that are being repaired was because of the boys that are being held at the facility. 5 young men had just recently escaped and were still at large. Many employees were not showing up to work. She added that in 4 to 5 months, repairs and upgrades would be done. Nearly 10 years later, no remarkable upgrades have been made to the institution. This is essentially the prep step for jail. I say that because the Simpson Penn Center has no techniques that are effective at deterring juvenile delinquency. Who are the persons employed there? That's job it is to diagnose these kids' behavior and treat them, because they should be fired in my opinion. As mentioned by Melanie Griffin in her interview 9 years ago, the institution still isn't safe, neither secure. During the search, we found an incident as recent as 2018 where 13 males escaped custody. That's more than 20% of the 60-man population of 2011, which has more than likely increased by now. Just 2 months later, they would have another security breach where 4 young men would escape, not to mention numerous fights that happened at the institution, the most notorious one dating back to 2011, where 10 boys housed at the institution were brought before the courts for a fight that left several of the young boys with stab wounds. Depending on the crime or the judge, a 15-year-old can find himself remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections, which is number 3 on our list. In the remand center, there is a block known as the juvenile block, or D block. And this is where your child, the one that Janett Lansbury described as impressionable, will get the impression that being bad is good, simply on the basis that they are accepted there. In the Bahamas today, we have adopted the American culture to the point that the only thing that makes us different from African Americans are our passport and our geographical location. Our young ladies don't plait straw anymore. They twerk and have a crazed infatuation with makeup and weave. And our young men don't spin tops anymore or shoot marbles. They want to listen to rap music and shoot guns. The same way gangs are a stronghold in every prison in America, we have also adopted that part of their culture. The population of gangs in our prisons has increased so much. For peace sake, prison authorities allow gangs to control portions of the prison, and upon arrival, you're asked, what gang are you in? And if you were to say none, they would ask, where do you live on the road? And that will determine which gang to affiliate you with. Now, because of a need to feel liked and protected, your child becomes a part of a gang. And depending on how deeply involved he becomes in gang activities, he could, and more than likely, will attract enemies that will pursue him on the road, to which presents danger for you and the rest of your family. This video is in no way designed to point a finger at any parents, communities, or the government. It's just to show how many chances we have to stop an impressionable kid from becoming a hardened criminal or a loved one gone too soon. We have to do better as parents, communities, and up to the government still has room for improvement. And punishment is not the only way to deal with troubled kids. The ills of our society don't happen overnight, they happen over years. Hit us up in the comment section and let us know your opinion. Do you think as a community we can save more of our kids and create a better future? Or is this just the way it is? Don't forget, if you haven't yet, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly uploads. Until next time, this has been the voice of our generation. Stay safe, Bahamas.